Chapter 13, we came to the end of the chapter, and it's a very interesting point, and the point that the Alter Rebbe speaks about is truth. Truth, yeah? So let's read it inside. It's a bit of a long paragraph. The last paragraph on the second page. And this will give us also an explanation to the true definition of Hashem. When someone tells you who is God, right? Who is Hashem?
Who or what?
Who, what? Okay, what would you say?
What?
Okay, what is Hashem?
No, I wouldn't say who.
Who is on much of a higher level, right?
No.
So what do you mean?
Who is the limit?
There's a limit also to what? Any definition will put a certain limit. That's the problem with trying to defining Hashem. What would you say? There was once a story about two Hasidim that one asked, the other Hasid, he asked him this question: who is God? Or how can you describe God? What is God? So as the other Hasid started to answer, he immediately told him, you're wrong. Because anything you'll try and explain, it's not the definition.
Is the
And so.
Okay, so this is a very interesting point. Ein Sof means that Hashem is unlimited. Is it correct to say that? Hasidus says is that Hashem.
No, because Ein Sof is only one of the myriad of attributes that Hashem exhibits.
Yefemot. In other words, if you say that he's unlimited, you're saying that he cannot be limited. He cannot limit himself. Like the famous philosophical question, can God create a stone or a rock that he cannot pick up? So whatever you'll say, you're in a certain problem. The point is, and this is something that the Rambam says, very interesting to see it in the words of the Rambam. The first part of the Rambam says that what is Hashem? Leida sheyesham matsui rishon. That there is, Hashem is an existence. Metziut. That is the only way to define Hashem. Someone tried to say a creator. Hashem's a creator. What is Hashem? Hashem's a creator. That's what does Hashem do? He creates. Yes, 100%, that's right. But who is He? What is He? He exists. We don't know how to describe Him, what to say about Him, but He exists. That's the only thing we can know. Unlike us humans, we don't really exist. We are called, we depend, our existence depends on Hashem. And in that same way, the whole concept of truth is also related very much to this idea. Let's see it inside.
You said we don't exist, then you said, talk about our existence. Just now, you said you don't exist. You said, you talked about our existence.
Oh.
How can you say two things at the same?
They seem to contradict.
They're inconsistent, that's right.
Right. So in Hasidus, they speak generally about the whole world to show that the world is called Batel B'Metziut. And we learned about it previously in Shara Yichud Ve'emunah, when we want to say that Hashem is the only existence. But what about the world? What about the table? What about the chairs? What about the humans? Etc. So the idea is that we do exist, but with His power. We don't have what's called self-existence. And that's what the Rambam says, that Hashem is Matsui Rishon. Hashem is the first existence, because one of the problems, for example, it's one of the questions that they have about the theory of evolution and the Big Bang is, okay, so you say that there's a certain point there was a Big Bang, and this is how the world was formed. What was before the Big Bang? What was there before? where did the Big Bang come from? So science answers that, and this is something where you can clearly see that there's a certain limit to science. But science is, is very important and it contributes a lot, but there is a limit. And they say we don't need to deal with that type of question. That's the typical answer you will get. Because it's more kind of a philosophical question. They can say that it's what was there before. 100%. Science is here to deal with what we see in front of us today. How does that function? How does that work? And what was the way that it was formed? But it doesn't give an answer to what happened before. And that's where we need the answer of the Torah, that there's a God that created. There's a creator to the world, a creator to so-called the development. Which there's a very interesting Ramban on the Torah, on the Chumash, right at the beginning, that the Ramban says that the world was formed starting from this koach hiyuli, which is a spiritual power, and that's what caused the world to evolve, to continue growing, but of course not in the way that they explain it. Everything is very, very much. It's very different according also to the measurements, according to what they see that the world expands today. That's how they do the calculation of how long it took Hashem to create it. It took Hashem to create it exactly as it's described in Bereshis, the 6 days. But the way that Hashem created is one, as the Ramban says in the Chumash, is that from one came another and so on. So there is some kind of evolution, not the regular theory of evolution, but the Torah way of evolution. Ovadia, you wanted to ask something?
I was just going to say, if I told you what was here before the Big Bang, you would ask me what was here before that.
Right. And that's why, how does the Rambam solve this problem? The Rambam says there is something that is called self-independent existence. That there's no such a question, what was before him. He's there. He's a true existence.
He took this from Aristotle.
Matzu Lishon is from Aristotle.
The idea from Aristotle.
Interesting. It's well known also in Sifrei Chakirah, which means it's the Rambam's Torah, where he writes even the first chapters is considered Torah, which means it's not just philosophical ideas. Maybe he took a look in other books as well, but it's but it's Torah. When you learn the first Prakim in the Rambam, you've got to say Birkas HaTorah. It's not just general science, but definitely it's known in the books of Chakirah, which is books of investigation, the logical thinking about the existence of Hashem in the world. It's well known, this idea that there is some kind of that there is an existence of a God, that he is self-dependent. So this idea is also about truth. Let's see here the last paragraph. Would you like to read for us starting from now? Yeah.
Now this quality of love, which we speak in the case of the quote Benoni, intermediate people, which is attained at the time of prayer by virtue of the preponderance of the divine soul, etc., is, in comparison with the degree attained by the tzaddikim who serve God in perfect truth, not called true service at all, since it passes and disappears after prayer. And it is written, quote, the lip of truth shall be established forever, but a lying tongue is but for a moment. Nevertheless, in relation to the rank of the intermediate people, it is regarded as a true, perfect service in terms of their level of truth, in each man relative to his standing in the ranks of the intermediate. For in their case, too, their love during their prayers may be termed the lip of truth shall be established forever, since their divine soul has the power to reawaken this kind of love constantly during its preponderance in time of prayer, day after day, by means of an appropriate mental preparation, each soul according to its intrinsic quality and rank. For truth is the attribute of Jacob, who called the middle bolt, which secures everything from end to end. From the highest gradations and degrees to the end of all grades, and in each gradation and plane it fixes its bolt to the most central point, which is the point and quality of its attribute of truth. The attribute of truth is an unbounded inheritance, which has no limit upwards to the highest degrees, while all lower gradations and degrees are as nothing compared to those that are superior to them. As is known to those who are familiar with the esoteric discipline, that quality which is, as it were, the head and intellect of lower grades is inferior to the so-called souls and feet of the grades above them. Compare the statement of our sages. The feet of the Hayot measure up to all.
Shkoya,
Wow.
thank you. Wow, that was it. That was a long paragraph and also a heavy paragraph, right?
You want to do that again?
Read it again.
So, there was once a story, and this is also connected to the problem that sometimes we face that is called black and white. Sometimes, and especially at a young age, people often see things black and white, which means it's or that you are good, positive, or you're bad, negative. And this applies to many, many cases, to success in life, to achieving goals, to keeping Torah and mitzvahs. So a person says, you know what, I set for myself a certain goal to to run my own company at the age of 45 or at the age of 40. And then he sees that it's the age of 40 or at the age of 39, 38, and he's not even close. And it seems like an impossible route. So he says, well, everything is not worth it. And in Torah and mitzvahs, it's the same thing. A person says, Oy I'm not able to keep this specific mitzvah. I see that this is a big difficulty. Or I want to take upon myself a resolution to be closer to Hashem, but this seems like a huge mountain. So what is the point even starting to do this? And this is also connected to Tiferet. We are now in the days of Sfirat Omer, and tonight, Bezrat Hashem, we're going to have a special lecture by Rabbi Benji Elson, who is a psychotherapist, right? And he wrote a special book about the Sfirot and about the definition of each Sfirah. So we're going to have it here at 7:30. But in relation to what we're speaking now, there is Emet, truth, and there is Tiferet. Tiferet is the third attribute, and it's well known also to align with the idea of truth. Titen Emet leYaakov. Yaakov is also deeply connected to this midah of Emet. However, if we take a look to the idea of Emet and of Tiferet, it seems that there is a bit of a difference between the two. Yaakov is the third of our forefathers, and Abraham is Chesed, Yitzchak is Gvura, Yaakov is Tiferet. So, truth, can truth be can be right at one place and wrong at the other place?
Say that again?
Truth. Can truth be something subjective? Today, it's well known that people are, this is my truth.
Alternative.
You make your own reality.
Making your own reality, right. Or making our own facts. Truth, we all know, is something that 2 plus 2 equals 4, that's true. 2 plus 2 equals 4 in Israel, in China, and in the United States. And if it does not, if it's not true somewhere, so it means that it's not true. It can't be partly true. That is Emet. And this is where also we call Hashem Emet. Hashem Elokechem Emet. The only real truth is Hashem, because again, Hashem is not dependent on something else. Hashem exists because of himself. So that's why Hashem is Emet. And this Emet, we say Torah and mitzvahs are Emet. So this Emet means black and white. How do we solve this problem of black and white? And you know how important it is for a Beinoni, because let's go through the Beinoni's mind. And soon we'll see that the Beinoni needs each and every one of us. The Beinoni every moment faces a temptation. Every moment. He cannot get rid of these temptations because he's not on a level of a tzaddik. And the Beinoni has to tell himself that even though the Yetzer Hara knocked on my door this morning and I chased him out, he's going to knock on the door in an hour's time.
Like a fly.
Like a fly that you can't chase away, right? NACHLAOT? He's like a fly, exactly. So what is the Beinoni? What is the Beinoni's solution? How is he close to Hashem be'emet, avodat Hashem be'emet? And sometimes the Beinoni, he might even fall. He's not supposed to fall, and the moment he falls, he becomes a Rasha. Let's say that's tshuva. Now he's back on track. He's a Beinoni again. But is that truth? So this is the difference between Tiferet and Emet. Or in other words, the Alter Rebbe introduces to us that there is such a thing as subjective truth.
That applies to everyone. Because
yeah.
if you believe that it's truth, then it's subjective.
Yeah,
there are many people who think they're right.
Right. Right. So here we've got to see what the explanation that the Alter Rebbe brings from this, and that's what the Alter Rebbe says, that there are several levels in Emet, and each one has his own Emet. And this is based on the potential. Here's a story that might be able to explain to us this idea. There was once a chassid, there was a successful businessman in the times of Russia. Every time he used to come to the Tzemach Tzedek, Tzemach Tzedek is the Rebbe in the white on the wall there up top, if you can see. And the Tzemach Tzedek, he basically, when he used to come to the Tzemach Tzedek, he used to dress like a chassid, with the big streimel, and with the sirtuk, with the long bekitcher. And that's how he used to walk into Lubavitch, and that's how he used to enter the Tzemach Tzedek and the shul, and of course during the holidays whenever he was there. But then, when he went to his business meetings, he didn't dress in that way. He dressed a bit more modern. So one day, he thinks to himself, who am I fooling? Why am I dressing at the Tzemach Tzedek's base Midrash like a big chassid, and 3 weeks later I go to my business trip there, I'm dressed like any other businessman. So he decided, you know what, I've got to be honest, I've got to be true with myself, and he said he's going to walk like a businessman also in Lubavitch. He comes into Lubavitch, and all the people see, oh, he decided to wear his business suit, and he goes into the Tzemach Tzedek to him for Yechidus. So the Tzemach Tzedek says to him, what happened? So he said, honestly, I don't want to fool you. You know, this is the way I walk when I go in Petersburg and anywhere else. So I want to be true with myself. So the Tzemach Tzedek said, I thought that your real true clothing is the chassid's uniform. And when you go to Petersburg for your business meeting, you're fooling them. But now you're saying that it's the opposite. So, but what is it with this person? Like, on the one hand, this is the idea that we always have the potential, and our true being is connected to Hashem. Those are our garments, the chassid's garments. And sometimes a person falls. Sometimes a person has to act in a certain way because he's not yet on that high level. It's okay, as long as we know where we truly exist, where we are truly connected to. There was once the Russian Tsar and the German Caesar, not Caesar, the German Chancellor, or the, sorry? Chancellor, yeah. They met in Moscow, and they were the Russian Tsar showed him the soldiers. They went to a few army bases, and once they came to this army base, the soldiers weren't there, and they started to go to the city, and they see on the way a lot of the Russian soldiers were drunk. So the Tsar was there, whatever. He sees one soldier, and he tells the commander, put him in prison. No one else, only that one soldier. Then the German chancellor said, Emperor. He said, right, in the Wilhelm they were emperors, right? So he says, why did you send just this person to prison? Everyone else was drunk as well. So he says the rest, they were all facing the army base, the army camp. This soldier was the only one still facing the city where the Bet Marzeach is, where the bar is. So once again, there's a certain, that's why even if sometimes for us it's a challenge, and even if we fall, and even if this Beinoni falls, because a Beinoni can fall, he's able to overcome that and to become once again a Beinoni, but sometimes he can fall. And after he does true tshuva, he has the potential to be a Beinoni. But in the case when he falls, as long as he knows that it's not something permanent and it's not who he truly is, but it's the Yetzer Hara or the Nefesh HaBa'amit, that it's the other part of him and it's not his true Metziut. So, okay, so you holding on a level of your real truth. That's your truth. And this is Tiferet. Tiferet is not stubborn truth. Tiferet is a combination between Chesed and Gvura. So what is the real path? Should I be full of kindness? Should I give all of my money away? Should I give a child a knife? Should I give a beggar money even though I know that he might go and use it to buy whatever, drugs or alcohol? On the other hand, should I be very much into Gvura, which Gvura is restriction and order, and should I say, you know what, you did not work well enough, and that's why you're in that position, and I'm not going to help you out. Tiferet says that there's a combination between the two. Emet is a bit more strict. Emet says it's just one way. Emet is also in a certain way a combination of the two, but it's way more strict. So this perhaps is the idea behind the emet, the individual, personal truth, which means according to your level, are you maximizing your full potential? Are you in the right steps according to your ability, according to your powers or energy, according to your stage in life? If so, Beseder Gamur, then you are practicing Yiddishkeit in the full way that you're supposed to. There's a story about one of the Israeli members in the U.S. Embassy, in the Israeli Embassy in the United States. He was in charge of the supplies for the IDF. And they used to come to him every Friday and offer him to put on tefillin. And once he decided, you know what, I want to get closer to Hashem, strengthen my connection to Hashem in observing Torah and mitzvahs. He wrote a letter into the Rabbi, and the Rabbi said, well done, do it. The exact words were, a daily behavior according to Shulchan Aruch. Now, if you are in the beginning of your journey, there is nothing that can put you off more than this answer. Because if you open the Shulchan Aruch, first of all, you've got to know the dinim, the laws of the Shulchan Aruch. But it's so hard to keep to every single law, and the person that's just coming close to Hashem. And we spoke about it once. Let's say a person that wants to start keeping Shabbos. But it's very hard for him. And sometimes if he'll say, you know what, I'm going to keep Shabbos all day, I'm going to sit and learn. So he'll do it for one Shabbos, second Shabbos, the third Shabbos. On the fourth Shabbos, his wife is going to be very upset. The fifth Shabbos, the children are already going to go play outside and whatever. And by the 10th Shabbos, he himself might snap back. So in that case, many times the rabbi will advise him and tell him, you know what, you can put on your TV on time switch. So we as observant Jews, we are holding already at that level. For us, is that something that is true? Can we do that? That's not our truth. Why? Because that's not where we are holding. But for that other person, for him, that's his truth. And this is what the Rebbe said. The Rebbe said, take a look in Shulchan Aruch and you'll see that according to Shulchan Aruch itself, Shulchan Aruch says, tafasta merube lo tafasta. Which means that if you try and jump the gun, if you take upon yourself too much, you're not going to catch anything. So, in other words, the Shulchan Aruch itself gives us the opportunity and the ability to take it step by step. And this is where we should, why is there personal truth? Our own individual truth, the Beinoni's truth, and in the Beinoni itself there are so many levels. That is because the Torah itself acknowledges that the world works in that way. The Torah itself tells us, take it step by step.
I think there is a shiur about this issue. It's called Emet La'amito.
Emet La'amita. Yafe. And here, this is what the what the Alter Rebbe says. Okay. Sfat Emet Tikon La'ad. For example, it says Bemet Sfat Emet, truth, lies has no feet, right? Has no legs. That's what they say about a lie. Truth exists always. But with the Beinoni, there's no guarantee that it would exist always. But for him, because he's able to add to his to this ahavat towards Hashem, therefore it's considered to be emet. So this is the summary of chapter 13, and chapter 14. Chapter 14 is connected very much to what we spoke. So I just want to bring the copies. Chapter 14, and this is very interesting words. Alter Rebbe says, "Perek Yudalev v'hine midas habeinoni hi midas kol adam," which means the Alter Rebbe is telling us that this nature of being an intermediate man belongs, and each and every one of us can be on that route. And what is the Beinoni? We spoke about the Beinoni. Shekol Adam Yachal Yis Beinoni B'chol Eis V'chol Shah. Ki HaBeinoni Einoi Moyes B'ra Shezeu Davar Amosel Alev V'loi Kaleitim Shabbos El Asur Me'rava Setoiv Daina B'poyal Mamesh B'maise Dibur Machshav. In other words, the Alter Rebbe is telling us is that each and every one of us can be a Beinoni. Why? Because a Beinoni does not need to deal with the bad that's inside him, these temptations, with the Yetzer Hara itself. He knows that he'll always have that. He deals with what's called the Bepoyel Mamesh. Bepoyel Mamesh is our garments, is our thought, our speech, and our action. And those are things that a person can put a limit to. He can tell himself, even though I've got some kind of bad desire, I'm not going to practice it. And this is something that each and every one of us do every single day, and we do it quite a few times during the day. So the idea of the Beinoni is that he is in control all the time.
I'd like to think there's two levels of Ra.
Of Ra?
Ra.
Yeah.
The Beinoni goes into the Ra, but he knows he does that. He knows he did something wrong.
Yeah.
And then there could be just a raw person who doesn't even think about these things.
So
I
those...
equate those two.
Okay.
That's not the Benoni.
Ra's evil. Yeah, sorry?
That's not the Benoni.
That's not the Benoni, right? That's the Rasha. We spoke about the Rasha, the evil person, that he has these two sides to him, which means that he falls into the Ra, and then after he falls into the Ra, or he has these regrets, and that's why it says Reshaim Meleim Charatot. Evil Reshaim are full of regrets, because they're very much aware of what's right and what's wrong. They just didn't have the power to overcome these temptations. And that is the majority of people today. Because the Beinoni is very hard to become a Beinoni. The Alter Rebbe says that each and every one of us can and should do it, but it's hard. Because a Beinoni guards his garments every single moment. He doesn't do, and this is what the Alter Rebbe says, that he does not do this. I think this was chapter Yud Bet. Here he says that it belongs, but chapter Yud Bet it says that he does not do bad at all. Never. So I'll give you there is a way, so a person can ask himself, so let's say I did something bad 20 years ago, can I become a Beinoni today or tomorrow? Or can a Beinoni, let's say there was a Beinoni that was doing very well, it was very good, but then one moment, chas v'shalom, he did one sin, so now he's back into a rasha. So there's a very easy solution. I'm not sure if it's easy, but there's a solution for the Beinoni. He does tshuva. The moment a person does tshuva, and there's a whole part which speaks about how to do tshuva, at that moment, he can restart his cycle as a Beinoni. And maybe this is the explanation to the words of the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe says, a person, acharei yimshoch kol adam, every person can be a Beinoni every time and every hour. Why does the Alter Rebbe say every time and every hour? A Beinoni should be a person that started off at the age of 13 in the right way, and he's driving on that highway for the rest of his life. The Alter Rebbe says no. A person should strive to become a Beinoni every time and every hour. Because we, each and every one of us, we can, if we do sincere tshuva, for the hour, for the day, for the month, for the year, we can become Beinoni. And on the other hand, there is no guarantee for other people that may have, and we spoke about it, I think, also the last year, about Yochanan Kohen Gadol, who was a Kohen Gadol, and until the age of 80, he was a righteous person. But there was no guarantee for him that he could not fall back. And that's what happened. He became a tzedek at the age of 80. So it works both ways. And this is also an encouragement that the Alter Rebbe tells us. You know, a person might think that why is it worth it to become it takes so much effort to overcome desires. So why should I even struggle with the Yetzer Hara? Is it going to guarantee me a life pass as a Beinoni? No. A moment later I can fall back into a Rasha. So why should I try this in the first place? Why should I work so hard without achieving any goal? This is also what the Alter Rebbe says, B'chol et v'chol sha'ah. For Hashem, every moment, and this is in spiritual worlds in general, every moment that we overcome this Yetzer Hara, this is infinite. This is unlimited. This creates an angel and creates a world where we created it and we are Beinonim forever for that moment. Our life is not just one big part of 120 years, 180 years. Our life is every single moment, it's a new life for a person. And he can define that time, that moment and that place and say, is this a heichal, is this a palace for Hashem where I am a Beinoni, or is this a palace where chas v'shalom I wasn't successful? So a person, and again, we come across it every single day, where there might be a certain temptation to do bad, or sometimes not to do good. And a person tells himself, I'm going to do good, I'm going to overcome this temptation. It was 1 second, and it is 1 second. And if you've ever experienced it, you know that to overcome the Yetzer Hara is just 1 second. Telling him no. That is infinity. That will last forever. No one can take it away. Yes, a moment after that the Yetzer Hara knocked on the door again and you were not successful, that's a different world, a different time, a different person. And yes, a person fell then, so he's not anymore a Beinoni, he's got to do tshuva. But it's a huge encouragement that the Alter Rebbe is telling us that we can become every time, but also every hour a Beinoni.
But it says that elsewhere that a Beinoni never sins his whole life.
Yeah.
And never will.
Yafeh. So, okay, so
it's a different definition of Beinoni.
Yafeh. So this is a very good question, because the Rebbe asks this question on the Alter Rebbe. On the one hand, chapter 12, it says that the Beinoni will never sin. But on the other hand, it says that every person can become a Beinoni every time and every moment. So how do they both go together?
Beinoni never sins, because the moment he sins, he's not a Beinoni.
Okay. So the way the Rebbe explains it is that currently, the way he is now, he will never sin. It's a combination of the two. If you ask this person, would you sin now? If he's in a state of a Beinoni, currently he would tell you, for the rest of my life I'm not going to sin. But it does not mean that he actually is not going to sin for the rest of his life. There is no guarantee. And if he did sin once afterwards, so at that point he becomes a Rasha. But until then, he was a Beinoni that, right, it's like and we can experience, if you've ever overcome a temptation, doesn't have to be also a spiritual temptation or some kind of big mitzvah. It could be a temptation of drinking something you're not supposed to drink by your diet. So when a person says, I'm not going to drink this, at that moment when he says, I'm not going to drink this, for him, it's like, I'm not going to drink it even if it's tomorrow, even if it's this, even if it's that. It's a firm decision. That's the real approach that we should have with our Yetzer Hara. When we chase away this Yetzer Hara, we tell him, listen, buddy, at this moment, you don't interest me at all. And why is this? Why do we say that it's be'emet so strong? The proof is when a person is inspired by davening, when a person goes to the kotel, when a person is in a hitva'adut, when he's in a farbrengen, or when a miracle happens to him, at that moment there's no one to talk to. The person is davening at the kotel and there's no one to speak to. He's so focused, so devoted to Hashem. That is a Beinoni that will never sin. Could be that in 2 days' time he will practice it. But if you take him back to the feeling that he had then, he would never sin. And this is also again why the Beinoni is Avodat Hashem is true. We spoke about the truth. Why is it true? 2 days from now he might sin. But if you would copy paste his feelings now to 2 days' time, he also would not sin. What can he do that there's another being inside him that's pulling him that way? He's not the only man de Amar. This is to try and combine the two ideas. Does it make sense?
But if he continues not to sin, wouldn't he become a tzaddik?
No. A tzaddik is born in that way. He can become, and this is what the Alter Rebbe says, is something that is called a teva sheni, a second nature. And this is why there are certain practices that we can practice in order to be closer to spirituality. That's why davening is a big part of our life. Why is davening a big part of our life? The mitzvah midoraisa to daven is when a person needs something, he should daven. Our scholars brought on and came on the idea of the 3 davenings every single day, but the whole nusach. Chasidim are Rishonim, as the Gemara says, Hayushoim sha'achas bit koidem tfilasan, v'sha'achas achad tfilasan. Chasidim are Rishonim used to daven 9 hours out of their day. 3 davenings, 3 hours each davening. The majority of their day went for davening. Why? And this is what we say. Because if you have the opportunity to go to the kotel every single day, the amount of temptations will drop. No doubt about that.
So you asked if it makes sense. It makes sense if the tshuva of the Beinoni is not a regular tshuva that I did something wrong, I regret it, I don't want to do it again.
Yeah.
But deep down I know that it most likely will happen. The tshuva of the Beinoni is the he knows that he will never do that.
Sincere tshuva. Nachon. And that's why, if we take a look at Igeret HaTshuva, there's a whole part to how to do tshuva. It says there that the person has to say, I'm never going to sin again. The person cannot say, I'm doing tshuva, but he knows that he's not really going to do it. No. And again, a person can be sincere about this, and once we know that there's a Yetzer Hara that's trying to put us the other way, so we don't have to feel that we are definitely going to sin. Speak to your godly soul. Express your godly soul. This is the idea of davening. What happens in the davening? The davening is a place that the Nefesh Elokit can thrive. That it feels at home. Why do we enjoy davening? Why do we enjoy a shir more than any other scientific class or class in history? Because the neshama also enjoys part of it. So the more we feed the neshama, the more energy it gets, the more it can face the temptations.
Rabbi,
it's like, Ken.
I think all this applies only to very knowledgeable people. To normal people who are normally knowledgeable, you cannot apply this.
So it depends what we are trying to apply. Logical people that make a mathematical equation and they say it's all good and fine that now I'm davening or now I'm in a shir or now I'm at the kotel, but in 2 weeks' time I'm not planning to be there. And then he says, you've got to be real. But that is not who you are. It's not who we are. It's a nefesh habahamit. I'm aware that there's someone else. It's like sometimes, here's another. Okay, you know, a person knows that once every, 200 years, there might be a catastrophe in the country that he's living. Corona, a flood, a tsunami, a tornado, earthquake. There's so many things. So a person, would he tell himself, you know what, it's not worth it to work hard enough now? Sometimes people do say it, and these are extreme cases, but sometimes we can find in our own personal life examples that are a bit more accurate and a bit more like, why should I sacrifice the present for the future? That's one of the questions. So if you are sincere with yourself, you know that now it's worth it to work very hard for that sake. And whatever happens later, it's not you. It's not in your hands. You're not doing anything wrong. And this is why even a logical person, he can apply to this idea. Because now this is the moment. They once asked the Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka, if I'm not mistaken, when was the moment that you enjoyed, what moment in your life did you enjoy most? So she said, right now. What does she mean? That you can't live in the past and you can't live in the future. You've got to really live in the present. This is the only thing that really counts and exists. If we start doing calculations about the past, we might fall into the past. If we do too many calculations in the future, and this is people that are very worried, they're worried what is going to be with the stock market in a year's time, what is going to be with the war in Ukraine, is the war in Ukraine going to develop into a World War III? So maybe it's not worth it, maybe I should take this year for a cruise the entire year. Because it's... what?
They say the present is a gift, that's why it's called present.
Yeah, yafeh mod. I like that. Yafeh. So it's an avodah kasha, because logical people do think about the future, and you've got to think about the future. But we can also make the separation together with thinking about the future, right? It's like it also connects to the topic of Mashiach, right? Sometimes we say, you know what? Do we want Mashiach to come this moment? We've got a few things to settle. Let's wait for the league to finish. And after the league is done, and we know who's the champions, and that's when Mashiach should come. Or planning about the future. The Rebbe always said, Mashiach is going to come this moment, Mashiach is going to come this moment. Should that determine our financial decisions? Should we say, no, there's no point in investing or things like that, because Mashiach's going to come in the next 40 years, 50 years. Why should we invest so much? There are two parts. There's currently living with the idea that Mashiach can come every moment, and then there's what the Shulchan Aruch itself tells us, plan for the future. Like the answer of the Rebbe to this person is, do the entire Shulchan Aruch. But take a look, the Shulchan Aruch itself tells you take it step by step. So there's one thing about knowing the truth, and there's another thing practicing it in your steps, slowly but surely. And it's not small steps, and it's not a contradiction.
Even psychologists use that term.
Yes, what do they say? Small steps. Nachon? Improving our mental and spiritual health. A lot of the times they go together. A person sometimes thinks he's going to change everything. No, it's not going to happen. There's there's a lot in psychology. There's a lot of these ideas that it's got to be things that are reasonable, that we can actually change and improve. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So for a Beinoni, we're not trying to tell him it's or you put everything in, or you lost everything. No, the Beinoni at this moment, he should try and do the best he can. The Alter Rebbe, and just before your question about the Alter Rebbe, is going to bring later on a chapter 27. He's going to bring there a special strength, a special encouragement, for the Beinoni that no one else has. But we'll speak about it later. Let's keep that for later. Yes, Rabbi.
Well, at the top of the lesson, when you were saying who's God, what is God, you said it's existence.
Yeah.
So the Yetzer Hara exists, so the Yetzer Hara is a part of God. It's not a separate force. So when the Yetzer Hara is knocking on your door, it's actually Hashem saying, try to avoid this.
Exactly. Yefemot. That's a very, very good way to define the Yetzer Hara, and that can be very, very helpful. And we spoke about that. The Tanya brings a parable actually from the Zohar about a woman that is trying to tempt the son of the king by the king's command. So even that woman, her real desire is that the son of the king should not be tempted, but she is forced to try and tempt him, to test the king, the son of the king. And this is the Yetzer Hara every single day. That's what it's by the command of Hashem, right? For sure, there's nothing that exists without Hashem's living force.
So, from a theological point of view, that would be help. That you're not fighting independently. This is actually part of the plan.
Nachon, it's part of a plan. It's very helpful. By the way, other religions, they actually separate the two totally, and it doesn't. It makes it much harder. Let's put it that way. It makes it much harder. It's not as true. Okay, so Yeshar Koach. Bezrat Hashem, next week we're going to continue with chapter 14.